Football Morning in America column after the Super Bowl is always must read, as is all of Peter King's interviews coming off of the Super Bowl. And joining us right here is our longtime friend, Peter King, on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, PK?
Hi, Rich. How are you?
I'm great. Walk me through your process here about how you get someone like Reid so quickly after the Super Bowl, because I'm sure you would have wanted Nick Sirianni in that seat had things gone the other way, as they easily could have on Sunday night. Peter.
Well, Rich, I went to the AFC Championship game, met Andy in his office after the game, and talked to him. And right at the end, I said, hey, listen, when you win the Super Bowl, I'm really going to want to sit down, right after the game like we did last time in your office, and I'd love you to go through the winning play with me. And he nodded, and there was not I'll absolutely do that. But he knew that that's what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so I felt pretty good about that. And then 5 days later, I rode to work with Nick Sirianni, or 6 days later, on Saturday morning before they left for the Super Bowl. And I told him, hey, listen, I have done this thing after games where hopefully I get the winning coach to talk to me about maybe the decisive play in the game. And I'd love to be able to meet with you after the game. And I'll do it as quick as I can, but maybe 5 minutes. No commitment from him either, but at least he had it in his head that I was going to ask him to try to do this. So after the game, I went, and it was a probably crazier than usual in the Kansas City locker room because not only because obviously they were so happy, but in this particular case, for some reason, everybody in that place was smoking a cigar. And you hear my voice right now, but I'm telling you, it was like I was really, really struggling to breathe after a while because this acrid cigar smoke, if you're in that room for a half hour, I went up to the press box afterwards, and I was just coughing continuously. So I wrote that column while on a semi-continuous coughing jag. But anyway, Andy agreed to let me sit in there. He was there with his grandson, Maverick, 9 years old, Britt Reid's son, and also with his longtime agent, Bob Lamont. And so my videographer extraordinaire, Annie Koblitz, this was a tiny office, scrunched herself into a corner, turned the camera on, and then we learned all about corn dog.
Yes, that's the name. And the previous Super Bowl winner was called Wasp, which was that play that Mahomes counseled for in a timeout. Second half, the Niners were really putting their stamp on things. The Chiefs had not unleashed that huge passing attack to Tyreek Hill with any success, and then they call Wasp. You can hear Mahomes say on the NFL Films coverage, do we have time to call it, because it did require some pass protection, and that was the play of that Super Bowl. And this one was called, as you just mentioned, corn dog. It was the same play, just flip the field from the Kadarius Toney go-ahead touchdown, and then the one that put them up 8 to Sky Moore. Is that as simple as that?
It was not. It was not the same play.
Okay.
Corn dog was the Kadarius Toney play, and on corn dog, basically Kadarius, it's corn, C-O-R, because Kadarius Toney is supposed to run in, then immediately flip the switch and run back and run a corner route, which is exactly what he did. And he had 11 yards of spacing between here and the nearest defender. The reason that it's called a different play is not only because it's on the different side of the field, but because the first read for Patrick Mahomes on the touchdown pass to Toney was actually a run to Jerick McKinnon. And at the line of scrimmage, because he saw exactly what was going on, and at the line of scrimmage after he took the snap, he saw the simple fact that Darius Slay was not coming back to try to catch up to Kadarius Toney, and nobody covered him. And Rich, I at the risk of taking just 2 plays and damning a defense for it. I mean, I don't understand how 3 minutes after that play, the Philadelphia Eagles allowed the same thing to happen on the other side of the field with Sky Moore that happened with Kadarius Toney. How do you explain that? That the 2 winning plays in a Super Bowl, you don't cover the receiver, basically. I mean, look, the Eagles had a great year, but the end of the season for the Eagles was a total black eye. And I feel, hey, good for Jonathan Gannon. He got the job in Arizona anyway, despite this. But if I was in on that Monday interview with Jonathan Gannon, I would have wanted to know how in the world did you it happened once? Okay, it's like fool me once, fine. Fool me twice, well, shame on me. How does that happen a second time? And I'll be interested at some point in the future to hear the Eagles' reaction as to why that happened.
Well, I'll push back a little bit here, and this was going to be one of my questions to you. I'll get to it right now, Peter King, is that it's a black eye for the Eagles because they didn't have a chance to retort at the end because of a holding penalty that got called.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I think many fans are upset about the ending of Super Bowl 57 that don't even have a rooting interest for the Eagles, is that it was such an incredible game and we were robbed because of the penalty. Properly called, I think, although I wouldn't have minded if the official just kept the flag in his pocket. That we were robbed of Jalen Hurts sending the game to overtime or perhaps winning it for the Eagles. And your initial reporting or what you're hearing about the league's thoughts on such an incredibly played Super Bowl coming down to a yellow flag, Peter.
You know, Rich, I have not asked a soul in the league or on the competition committee what they thought. Mm-hmm. That is how it ended. But you just said it. And this is the thing that, in my opinion, everybody is saying, well, yes, it was properly called, but what? But what? I understand that it would have been a lot more fun if Jalen Hurts had 1:40 and 1 timeout and the ball at the 25-yard line, down 3 to go make his legend. I get it. We all know that. But you know what? It's not a Hollywood script all the time. It's reality. The reality is that Juju Smith-Schuster was restricted by James Bradbury, not severely, not overly significantly. I understand that. But let me ask you this, and I've asked a bunch of people this. I think it was Rich Gannon. Somebody said this on Twitter, and I think it's the perfect thing. If with 1:48 to go on that play, okay, right before it happened, if, let's just say, Orlando Brown false started, okay, and when he false started, in essence, he and it wasn't called, and it wasn't called. Every analyst would say, "Oh my God, Kansas City got another chance because they didn't call this false start, and it's an obvious false start." I mean, and oftentimes a false start is only a twitch. It's just it's a tiny movement, but you got to call it. And Rich, until this is just the way I feel, and I understand. I would have loved to have seen it too. Mm-hmm. We all would have. But the fact is, you know, if the play was going to be called, I mean, if it was a penalty, and most people seem to think that it wasn't terrible, but it was enough to be called for a penalty. The fact is, I just can't go crazy. And until the NFL says we're going to have some rules for the first 58 minutes, and then in the last 2 minutes we're just going to, quote, let them play like it's an NBA game, end quote. Until that happens, I don't really have a problem with what happened at the end of the game.
NBC Sports and host of the Peter King podcast, Peter King here on the Rich Eisen Show. Mahomes is the face of the NFL now, right? Yes, Brady's retired.
Yeah.
Mahomes is 27 with 2 championship trophies, 2 MVPs. Also, like I mentioned, Brady's retired. He could He could get in the area code if he keeps winning like this and
No
has the
question.
longevity of Brady's career, right?
Here's the thing, Rich. Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, if you put a line of demarcation at age 27, obviously Mahomes has 1,000 miles to go before he sleeps. But by age 27, their accomplishments are incredibly similar. In fact, they both won 80% of their starts by age 27. I did the math, like exactly. They both won 80%. Brady has won 3 Super Bowls. He's 3-0. Mahomes is 2-1. But how about this? In Mahomes' playoff appearances, by age 27, he's thrown 35 touchdown passes. Brady, by age 27, had thrown 11. Now, again, I'm not saying that Mahomes is better than Brady by any means.
Right.
But you said it. I think it's possible. I think one of the things that is Tom Brady's legacy, he has shown all of these quarterbacks the pathway to be great for a long time. Go and have your fun in the off season, but remember, this is a 12-month-a-year job, or let's say it's an 11-month-a-year job. Let's be fair, because even Brady went to Costa Rica in the off season. But as I once asked Brady after the Super Bowl against Atlanta, don't you ever want to go out and have 9 beers with your buddies? And he goes, I've done that, and this is a lot more fun. I think Mahomes probably feels the same way.
And he's also signed long-term, and Brett Veach, what a job building the roster. The offensive line may be, the best in the NFL, could go into next year with such a moniker and prove it again. The back end of the defense was so young, now has a ring and a year under their belt. I couldn't help but notice the DeAndre Hopkins tweet. I don't know if you saw that, just the googly eyes of him saying Mahomes is different. And everybody seeing the 1-year deal Juju Smith-Schuster signed with Kansas City, and now, forget about all the tweets that he sent out yesterday. Just I'm wondering if, now Kansas City's going to be a destination. Like, I'll go play with Mahomes, and someone like Hopkins raises his hand, right? I mean,
Rich, that's a fantastic point. Really, really prescient, I think. And I agree totally with you. I don't know what veteran is going to go to Kansas City for less money than he could have made elsewhere this year. Could it be DeAndre Hopkins? Could it be Jalen Ramsey? Could it be whoever? I don't know. Could it be a really good player who either in trade or in low-cost free agency chooses to go because he wants a piece of the pie now, and I think that's smart of you to say it.
Well, I mean, that's entirely possible that happens, and obviously Philadelphia with Howie Roseman, what he built and was able to build this year. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith could go into next year as the best wide receiver tandem in the NFL. And Jason Kelsey said on his podcast he needs to take some time. Told his bro on their podcast together he needs to take some time before figuring out what to do next. But what about Hurts? Because at least the Chiefs have their quarterback locked up. And if I'm not mistaken, I heard Mahomes' contract annual payment is going to be ranked 6th amongst quarterbacks next year. So they're in great shape there. What's the scoop on Hurts and how they're going to re-sign him, and then obviously have to work around what that means cap-wise? What do you got for me there, Peter?
Well, Rich, I guess I would say this, that the Philadelphia Eagles, who for my money had the best offensive line in football this year, and to me one of the best in recent history, quite honestly. And look, I have great respect for what Kansas City did too. But to me, so much of that right now, you saw what Jeff Stoutland did with Jordan Mailata at left tackle. He invented a very good left tackle out of an Australian rugby player. So I have faith that even if Isaac Sumalo, the right guard who really came through this year, and if Kelsey does retire, they'll figure it out, because they're very, very good at it. and have done it very well over the past few years. I think they'll figure out a way with Hurts, and I think Jalen Hurts, I don't even know who his agents are, but I think Jalen Hurts will instruct his agents to basically say, listen, just like Tom Brady once said, I don't want to be a pig at the trough. And Patrick Mahomes, one of the things he knows is that if Veach ever comes to him and says, we need to redo your contract to create cap space or to do whatever, he'll do it. And I think Hurts would do the same thing.
Last one for you, Peter King. The story, I know and I appreciate you calling in and, getting through this. Last one for you. What do you got for me on the storyline of the offseason? What do you think as we turn the page, the story will be, fill in that blank for me? Peter.
I think the biggest story in the offseason is going to be what happens with Lamar Jackson. And I think there's a legitimate chance that, Rich, let's say you as a lifelong fan of the New York Jets, you know that when Woody Johnson comes out after the season and says internally, quietly, however he says it, we're going to address the quarterback situation. Well, we all think, and I think you think, that the number one step would be Aaron Rodgers. If that doesn't work, could the number two step be Lamar Jackson? And this is going to be one of the toughest decisions a franchise, in my opinion, has had in recent years for a very simple reason. Obviously, anybody would want Lamar Jackson to be the quarterback of the team. But how much guaranteed money are you willing to give a player who in the last 2 years has missed 34% of the snaps because of injury? It's easy to sit here and say, get Lamar, sign Lamar, pay Lamar. Well, that's, of course. But what does that mean exactly? So to me, I think the Jets are going to have a very tough decision on their hands. And, I think they will go after Rodgers if he does play. And if they don't get him, I think they will at least put their sniffers out and seriously consider Lamar Jackson. And if, as you think, and I think you think this, that he's probably going to be given the franchise tag and the less restrictive one. So to see if there are any offers out there that the Ravens then would be able to get 2 first-round picks as compensation, let's see what happens. But to me, I think finding out whether some team out there is willing to pay Lamar Jackson $1 jillion guaranteed, I think that is the story of the offseason.
And then, Aaron Rodgers is the first domino to fall there. Because, look, I'm sure the Jets are enamored by what Nathaniel Hackett can bring to the equation. It can't be lost on them that the relationship he has with Rodgers when they hire him. Like, if they don't get Rodgers, great. They still have a guy who they love, who they think can either turn Zach Wilson around or whatever quarterback they get. But that relationship has got to count for something, don't you think?
The quarterback, you know what, Rich? The quarterback market is going to be really a lot of fun because I think the general perception, and it's early. The draft is 10 weeks away. But the general perception is that there is not a no-doubt guy in this draft. There are 3 really good guys in this draft, but there's not an absolutely no-doubt guy. So, does that mean that Lamar Jackson will be worth more? Does that mean that Baker Mayfield might get a starting job somewhere? And what does that, how does Aaron Rodgers impact that? Could Jordan Love be Aaron Rodgers circa 2008, and 15 years later, history repeats itself with a quarterback drafted in the 20s who gets the starting job in his 4th year? There's a lot of real fascinating stories revolving around that position.
And I guess I lied just in whatever 60 seconds you want to wrap it up. Derek Carr's market, it now exists. What's the timetable there, do you think? Quick? Fast? What do you think?
Well, if I were him, and if I were his agents, what I would be saying is we have the floor all to ourselves right now.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing, Rich, if I were them, I would wait for the white puff of smoke out of the Aaron Rodgers chimney. Because if Aaron Rodgers says either I'm not retiring or I'm going back to Green Bay or whatever it is, whatever he does, after that is known, then there's going to be a lot of clarity as to what Carr's market is. And I just really think at the end of the day, I think the Saints, even though they're in really bad shape cap-wise, I think the Saints should really try hard to figure out how to get Derek Carr, because that is a win-now offense with a defense that's good enough.
Peter, thanks again. Greatly appreciate it. Great job. I appreciate you soldiering through it with your voice, and let's chat again soon. I'll see you in Indy.
Sounds great, Rich. Appreciate it.
The best. Peter King right here. Check it out. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.